So a super common pattern that I see in marriages that creates a lot of conflict is a situation in which one spouse says how they feel about something and then the other spouse positions themselves in relation to or against it. So for example, let's say your spouse says, you know what, I didn't really like that person. They weren't very kind to me. And you say something like, oh, I don't see it that way at all. I think she was nice. And while that's just a true statement and there's nothing wrong with that logically, structurally that closes off the conversation, right? It just closes off any chance of connection in the form of curiosity, exploration, empathy, emotional closeness, because it puts you in contrast to them, right? It has a tit for tat energy or a contrary feeling. It's a challenge, it's a debate type of energy. And one of the biggest reasons that this happens is that maybe you identify with the person that your spouse is upset with. Maybe subconsciously you're taking up the side of the other person. Like you think to yourself, and this came up in a group the other day, I think that they're projecting onto that person that they think isn't nice the way that they do to me. Or they're critical of that person the way they are to me. I identify with that person that they're having tension with. I get them, right? Or it could just be a habit of conversation. It might not be that at all. It might be that, let's say you're talking about a movie or politics or something and you're just having a debate, like an intellectual spar, and that can be fun, right? But if your spouse is seeking connection and turning toward you in distress and you debate them, it doesn't feel good to them. And essentially you're having two different conversations. You're trying to have a debate and they're just seeking connection. So then your spouse feels unsatisfied or hurt, and then you might be arguing or end up in shutdown. You might feel like they're being unreasonable, and you'd be right if you said that you did nothing wrong. It's just that when you close off that opportunity to listen, to find out more, to empathize, to just be on their side or just hold space, you're losing that chance to build trust between you, because trust is built in small moments like these, in emotional intimacy and feeling like if I turn toward you, you're going to be there for me. So if this is you and you can relate to this, here's what you can do about it. Next time your spouse brings something up, like a negative reaction to something, like maybe they have hurt feelings about something that happened at work and they're talking to you about it, no matter how small, instead of positioning yourself in relation to that or countering it with a disagreement or even just a reframe, trying to give them a different way of thinking about it, which in other words is a way of removing the cause of their feelings, instead just try to put yourself in their shoes and empathize with how they might be feeling. Even if you wouldn't feel the same way in that situation, you probably had a similar experience in a different context, or maybe they're having an emotion that you have had in a different situation. So look for that connection, hold space, get curious, ask questions from a true place of curiosity, not from a place of challenge, and then just ask how you can support them. And I think that will be a game changer in your connection.
Stop trying to work on them. Stop it. You are only responsible for you. You can only work on how you show up as a parent. You can only work on how you show up as a spouse. You can only work on your communication patterns. You can set boundaries and expectations for how others will interact with you, and then you can hold those boundaries. The more energy that you spend trying to fix that other person, trying to change their patterns of behavior when they're not bought in the slightest, is fruitless. It is a waste of time. Do not spend another moment thinking of all of the ways your child should change. You can set house rules. You can set limits on what happens within your home that you bought. You can hold firm boundaries with your spouse. You can hold the boundary. But the more time you spend wallowing about all of the ways your spouse should change is time that you could have spent growing as an individual. And I'm sorry, but it's true. Accountability and ownership over yourself is the key.
My wife and I not having our own male or female friends or going out with the boys or girls till 2 a.m. has nothing to do with love, trust, or cheating. It has to do with not making the other person feel uncomfortable, but the most important, not disrespecting them. So to use a good example of going out to the bar till 2 a.m, if women are approaching or men are approaching and everyone's drunk, not that anything's going to happen, but it's disrespectful to the person at home that you're putting yourself in a situation. Same thing with social media. We have mutual friends, females, males. I will never follow or like or comment a bikini photo because it signals to the world that I might be into that person, which disrespects my wife. So I don't follow women it's like the modern day pulling out the chair, opening the door, putting your suit jacket over a puddle. If I saw you on a date with your girl and you didn't open the door for her and pull her chair out, you look like an asshole. And if you're commenting on girls' bikini photos or going out till 2 a.m. and supposed to be home but coming home at 5 drunk and disrespecting the relationship, you're also kind of coming off as an asshole. You don't have to agree with me. I'm just a complete stranger. I'm not, people can do what they want, but that's how it comes off. So I've been in my relationship for 12 years, and the last thing I'm gonna do is disrespect.
Who you married is not who you will divorce.
Absolutely correct. We're not supposed to stay the same. But if done right, we hone each other. We sharpen each other. Sharpening is not a particularly pleasant experience. You're grinding off the rough edges. But if done right, you grow together and you make each other sharper. There's an old joke, and I don't remember the stupid joke. If anybody remembers it, hit me up and let me know the joke. But they asked a 90-year-old woman, what's the secret to a long marriage? And she said, I've been married to 5 men. In my 20s, I was married to the young go-getter who was willing to take lots of risk and willing to lose it all and start completely over. In my 30s, I was married to the guy who didn't have to take quite as many risks, but still was willing to start completely over. In my 40s, I was married to the guy who kind of had it figured out and didn't really have to take any risks. Now I'm married to the guy that just sits on the porch and stares down the road. The person you marry will not be the person you die next to. The person you marry will not be the person that you go to the retirement dinner with. The person you marry won't be the one you're sitting next to at your kid's college graduation. We're supposed to change. We're supposed to grow. The trick is, how do we grow together? Thanks to this creator for giving me a springboard to jump off for that. I don't know her. Go check out her stuff. And if you like her, as always, if you find her worthy, give her a like and a follow.
If you're married today and you are struggling in any way, I can almost guarantee you can trace it to this root issue that you're not putting God first. You're not putting God first. We're not seeking Him first. You want your marriage to grow? Serve Him in the church together. Seek Him first every single day. Pray together. Be centered around God's Word. Seek Jesus together. Put Him first. And then make sure you come together and your relationship with each other is number 2.
I am my husband's wife. I am my husband's favor. I am my husband's good thing. I will be a loving wife. I will cover and pray for my husband. I will be a submissive wife. I will be a Proverbs 31 wife. My husband will love me as Christ loves the church. My husband will cover and pray for me.
The moment you bring up your feelings in a vulnerable way and you share your perspective or your hurt, and your partner or anyone else for that matter counter complains. They use this as an opportunity to voice their complaint. Yeah, well, you do this to me and I never complain. Or they tell you, you're just being too sensitive. We just have different perspectives. Once that happens, there is no reason to continue that discussion. You might feel the need to keep talking. Maybe they didn't hear me correctly. Maybe I just need to convince them a little more that this is a big deal for me. No, they either already know or they can't know. They either won't or can't do the work of actually validating your experience or perspective, because that's very difficult. It's hard to hold that space. It's very difficult to let someone speak their heart about something you did or didn't do and then say, your feelings matter to me. Tell me more. I want to be a safe place where you can share. It's far easier to let our defaults take over and get defensive or blame shift or invalidate. But when we let ourselves get into fights with someone like that, it can last for an hour, can it? And let me ask you, what gets accomplished? What gets accomplished? Absolutely nothing. Well, that's not entirely true. Something does get accomplished, which is that you feel even more hurt, more unheard, more distant, and more disconnected than when you started. So we need to be on alert. We need to know the warning signs in ourselves and in them. It's not your job to convince someone else to care about what's on your heart. It's not your job to come up with the right words so they don't disrespect or invalidate you or tell you, nothing I do will ever be good enough for you anyways. I'm always the bad guy. It's not your job to boost their ego back up and then apologize when they say you're not accepting them for who they are. Let's stop taking that bait. This is a person who is incapable of conflict resolution. They aren't interested in curiosity or empathy, and there's no point in wasting the next hour of your life arguing about literally nothing and finally realizing that they had no desire or ability to actually understand you. Let's stop arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding us. Trust me, from someone who was emotionally immature, the only way to solve this problem is in front of a professional. They do not value your opinion, so someone smarter than all of us needs to tell them how to break out of this negative cycle. And if they won't go, that should be all the information you need to know that they have no desire to actually put in the work to make this relationship work.
Listen, I know y'all think our marriage is cute pictures and romantic videos of me bringing her flowers, but we got our issues too. Like this morning, we had a petty argument, which led to another petty argument, which led to an argument about the petty argument because neither one of us is ever wrong. But then I was reminded, petty arguments are like weeds or dead plants. If you don't cut it off at the root, it's gonna affect everything around it. So stop giving life to dead things, agree to disagree, and move on about your day. Have a blessed day, y'all.
Hey, can we talk?
Yeah, okay.
Look, to be honest, I'm just really frustrated with how much it feels like you make this about me and then you shut down. And if you didn't shut down, I wouldn't have to raise my voice. And so that's why it gets like this.
So that's how you want to start this? That it's my shutting down? What about how you attack my character, you don't let me speak, and you're not going to take any responsibility for anything you did?
Hey, can we talk?
Yeah, okay.
So look, I take ownership that I raised my voice at you and I attacked your character, I labeled you, and I know that's something we've talked about and that really affects you. And so I promise that is something I am going to remove from the way I handle conflict.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. And I know my part in it is that when that happens, I do shut down, and I know that has you feel like I'm disengaging, certainly that you don't get a chance to say anything or be understood. So I do commit to not just shutting down and staying engaged in the conversation so that you can share what you need to. In this first take, you come back together after you let your emotion come down. However, you start with what your partner did wrong, or you try to rehash these details that you just don't agree on and you might not ever agree. So in the second take, you want to reinitiate by starting with, hey, here's where I take responsibility.
Couples therapist noticed 7 patterns in couples who made it. Here they are. They had boundaries with family. They put the relationship first and had clear boundaries with family. They didn't vent to them about issues or make decisions based on what their families wanted. They did what was best for their partnership together. They were friends. They genuinely enjoyed spending time with each other. They were excited to come home and catch up after a long day. Friendship was the basis of their relationship. They had been through really dark times. They had all been through really difficult periods where they were at a crossroads and even had second thoughts, but they choose to stay together and work through it. This established trust. They let each other be themselves. There was a base level of respect and admiration for each other, rather than a desire to change each other. This freedom brought out the best parts of each of them. They had difficult conversations. They communicated regularly and were open to each other's perspectives. They didn't cope by avoiding or denying. Emotional regulation was present, so conversations rarely became explosions. They fought. They got on each other's nerves. They fought and were frustrated with each other at times, but they knew how to navigate conflict, bounce back, and move forward. They made light of each other's quirks. They appreciated and acknowledged the quirks in each other. Even if they were at times annoying, they made light of them and were never hypercritical.